Each year at the eClinicalWorks National Conference, we speak with clients who are advancing healthcare in new and innovative ways. This year, we spoke with Dr. Reddy, founder of Rainbow Pediatrics Clinic, and Amber Folk, CEO of Clark Clinic, about their use of telemedicine for their patients. Let's join the conversation to hear how they've let their patients know about telemedicine and how they implemented that in their practice.
This is how your patients are actually accessing this. Now, are they tied to a computer? Do they have to be on their patient portal to use telemedicine? Or are they getting this through their smartphones in the Healow app?
Everybody has a smartphone now, so we leave it up to them. If they're home, they'll log on the computer, but most of the time they're on the road or at after-school care or in the car, parked in the car, of course, never driving, parked in the car at the soccer field. But everybody has a smartphone, so that doesn't limit, like location. You're not limited by location. It's just a matter of downloading the app, and we give them specific directions on how to do that. We do a test run, and they're good to go at the time of the visit. So it's very user-friendly, and it's mobile.
Yeah, so we waited to launch it before eClinicalWorks had their Healow app for televisits available. But since then, we've realized that there is a real mixture of people, whether they're logging in from the internet or whether they're downloading the app and utilizing televisits from there. But it's good to have options. And being in a rural area, we've found that even everybody does have a smartphone. It's just one of those things that access is not limited based on where they're at.
Yeah, these devices are just so prevalent now. Even a lot of the underserved patients from some of our other clients, the Door, who we were talking with yesterday, even a lot of their patients have smartphones as well. So definitely a great way to give them access. Now, I would also like to know, what did you do to let your patients know that these services were available, and what was their reaction?
So we started a campaign in our office where we rallied the providers to start talking about televisits and to get excited about it. We felt that it was nicer coming from the providers themselves, and parents are more apt to taking it on once they realize, oh, it's you that I'm going to see on that televisit. And so they're more open to trying it out when it's the provider talking to them. So we had a printout of what they need to do. We kind of described to them that it's kind of like FaceTime, but in a secure way with your doctor. Once you explain it that way, they're like, oh, I've done FaceTime before. Who hasn't? And so it was very easy to adapt. We also called all of our patients specifically and talk to them one-to-one to explain this opportunity of televisits.
Any other strategies from your side?
Yeah, so we did some similar things. We didn't call all our patients, but I love that idea. But we added it to our website, so if they landed on our page, they would know that we are offering telemedicine visits. We also incorporated it into our phone system. So when the patients called the office, we said, we're now offering telemedicine. If you're interested, press 7. And then that would go directly to whoever was responsible for kind of training them on the app, giving them information. But it was a nice way to really get the word out.
Those both sound like very effective strategies for getting this ball rolling. Now, if I'm thinking of it as a patient myself, I'm always running late. Do you ever have any trouble with patients showing up to their telemedicine visits on time? And did you have to do some education or working with them about that? Dr. Reddy's nodding her head.
Like I said, we opened it to our ADHD patients, right? And you have to understand that a lot of the ADHD patients have ADHD parents. And especially because when you have an appointment, you're taking the time out of the day to drive to the doctor's office, so there's a purpose for your movements. Whereas televisits, it's just on the fly, like, oh yeah, I got to talk to my doctor now in the next 10 minutes. So what we did is that we can see the virtual waiting room, so we tell them to come like 5-10 minutes before their appointment time. If we don't see them active on there, I will call them and say, hey, remember we got a televisit in 10 minutes, take your phone out. And so that's helped quite a bit if we tell them, 10 minutes before the appointment time, and it's just a matter of reminding them.
So one of the things that we did is if the patient hasn't downloaded the Healow app or we see that this is their first televisit, then we'll have a clinical assistant assigned to those televisits, and they'll call the patient ahead of time, make sure they're comfortable with the app, make sure they understand, kind of set the expectations for them of what that televisit is going to entail. And that has, I don't know, I think we're too new into it whether to see if it's impacted the no-show rate overall in comparison, but the patients that are engaging in the televisits I've seen are like more actively interested in making sure that it happens, they're logging in and seeing the provider.
So a little preparation goes a long way, it sounds
it
like,
does.
in terms of
Absolutely.
telemedicine. How for you or your providers in your office? What is the difference there in the telemedicine experience? Do you lose anything, or do you feel just as connected with your patients as you did face to face?
Yeah, that was one of my concerns before we launched the televisit. Is this going to come across as a cold way of interacting with your patients? But that's my own concerns. When I started to do it, it was kind of fun. You get to see a different perspective of your patient that you wouldn't otherwise, because they're in your environment when they're in the office.
This perspective, looking up from the nose.
Right. No, I mean they get dressed up and they're all done. They make sure their home is clean in the background at least, and so it's really cute. Or they'll say, "Oh, hey, Dr. Reddy, let me pay you a couple of chords on my piano here." So it adds a whole lot more because you get to see. Or, "Oh, look at my doggy. He wants to say hi to you." And it made me feel a whole lot closer to my patients, actually.
Oh, wow.
We've had a similar response. The providers that I've had conversations where they were very hesitant, a little skeptical about that, connection and that physical patient to provider communication, but they've been overly pleased with the outcomes. I think there's also some progress to be made as far as, checking some of the stats at home and things of that nature that they're like, it'd be great if I could. And so those have been interesting things to hear, but I think overall it's been a positive feedback from our providers.
Are we talking about stats in terms of like blood pressure
Yes.
and heart rate and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
No, of course, a lot of our vendor partners offer integrations with smartwatches and home blood pressure monitors and smart scales and things like that. So
Right, and we've looked into kind of just seeing which ones are probably better for which patients and things like that. So I think there's a lot of room to grow as well, which is exciting.
absolutely, I think we're just going to see a lot more happening in that space as time goes on. So telemedicine obviously going to have to balance this out with the traditional face-to-face office visit. Roughly how much of your schedules are dedicated to telemedicine? And is that something that's planned all the time, or is it ad hoc?
So we have a set schedule from 5 to 7, or 3 to 5 every single day, and then 5 to 7 on certain days of the week. So there's that set time. The providers know that those are the telemedicine times, and they have different days that they're on. I know you had a different approach to it, but
We only offer those visits after school, and you can understand why. So 2 days a week, the ADHD visits are only with the physician anyway, so 2 days a week we open up the physician's schedule from 4 to 6, 4 to 7, depending on how many patients we have, and open it up to that time. But we would like to integrate that into our regular workflow to be able to accommodate those patients that need early hours.
Let's see here. Do you have any policies or rules in effect for making sure that telemedicine gets scheduled appropriately in your office?
I think for us, it's just communication and making sure that anyone who answers the phone or anyone who's engaged with a patient interested in telemedicine kind of understands what it takes, understands our scheduling in that nature and what it is, so they can ask questions and answer them confidently.
And do you have any advice, just to wrap things up, because we are just about out of time here, do you guys have any advice for other colleagues of yours that are examining whether or not telemedicine is right for them?
I think my advice is to try it out and see. You have nothing to lose and a whole lot to gain. So if you're not sure it's right for your practice, just try it with a couple of patients.
I agree. Try it out.
Try it out. Why? Why not try it, right?
Well, Florida's cutting edge for televisits, apparently.
We are. Go Florida.
All right, well, thank you both so much for your time here, and it sounds like you guys are both taking great care of your patients down there in Florida with your telemedicine.
Thank you.
For the eClinicalWorks podcast, I'm Adam Salati, and you can check out our other episodes on iTunes, YouTube, or my.eClinicalWorks.com. We'll talk to you next time.